Welcome to Unsheltered Conversations, where we talk with leaders building a future without homelessness. I'm Scott Larson. This Veterans Day, we honor the men and women who served our country, and we shine a light on the work being done to ensure that every veteran has a place to call home. On a single night in 2024, just under 33,000 veterans were experiencing homelessness in the United States, a number that's down from more than 55% since 2010, thanks to programs that have combined compassion along with construction. Today, we're going to explore a remarkable model in Minnesota, the Veterans Village and Housing for Heroes initiatives, which have been innovative collaborations between HomeAid's affiliate, the Housing First Minnesota Foundation, Lennar, and the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, better known as MACV. These projects combine design, compassion, and service to ensure that no veteran is left without a home. Joining me today is Sofia Humphries from Housing First Minnesota Foundation, as we refer to HomeAid Minnesota, Jeremy Larson, a member of the foundation's board of directors, and Jon Lovald, Chief Operations Officer with MACV. Together, we're going to talk about what these projects mean, how these partnerships made them possible, including longtime industry partners like Lennar and the Lennar Foundation, and how Minnesota's success can shape housing initiatives nationwide. Sofia, Jeremy, Jon, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
You know, as I began, the three of you know, but for our listeners, although I've not lived in Minnesota, Minnesota is very much home to me. My father and grandparents all hail from the cities, from the Twin Cities. So every time that I go home to Minnesota, I feel very welcome, and I love the people from Minnesota. So I'm grateful for not only our conversation today, but the work that you're doing, the work that MACV is doing, and the work that Housing First Minnesota Foundation is doing. So, Sofia, let's start with you. To begin with, as a HomeAid's affiliate in Minnesota, Housing First Minnesota Foundation is driven by our collective mission to build a future without homelessness. For those that are listening that may not be familiar with your work, how do you actually partner with local organizations to build housing for Minnesotans in need?
Yeah. I would say we partner in two specific areas. First, we spend a lot of time fostering relationships with local nonprofits that are in need of housing solutions. Being that we are a responsive organization, we tend to lean on these nonprofits to tell us what the needs of the communities are, or our communities are. And then we also spend a lot of time, obviously, with the local home building industry. And our job in these partnerships is to really create that bridge between our nonprofits that are local here, that are in need of housing solutions, and the incredibly philanthropic members of the home building industry. And we create an organized and supported way for these members of our local construction industry to give back to their community.
Yeah, that's great. And we're going to talk a lot about MACV, but as we get into it, one organization that indirectly is close to me is Avivo. And Avivo, the reason is that I've walked when I've been in Minnesota with you and seen some of your projects. Some of the remodels that you've done with Avivo, those apartment buildings downtown, are a block away from the exact apartments that my parents lived in when they were first married in the 1950s. So it was kind of exciting for me to walk through, kind of to think back on when they were first married and the legacy that they have. So I'm grateful for the physical work that you're doing with Avivo. But with that mission and what you do, why have you chosen to focus on veterans in partnership with MACV? And what made this population and this collaboration rise to the top of your work?
Yeah. So about 8 or 9 years ago, we started a conversation with MACV and our build partner Lennar for all of our Housing for Heroes homes. And they came to us showing actually a great need for veterans and veteran homelessness in the state of Minnesota. We also came up with a model that focuses on transitional housing because collectively within this partnership, we wanted to help as many people as possible, given the resources that we have. And we found a special niche in that transitional housing space. So as the partnership started in 2017 and now where it is in 2025, over the last 8 years, we've continued to just build out and perfect this partnerships. And the reason we've continued to do the work that we're doing together is that we're actually seeing real impact and real results. From the very beginning, we wanted to have a collective goal of seeing an effective end of veteran homelessness in the state of Minnesota. And that's kind of been a driving force behind what we're doing and why we continue to work together.
Yeah, that's great because as we look at our collective work, philanthropy, partnerships, excellence, sustainability, and compassion, those values really shape how you chose to build veteran-specific housing, like the Veterans Village and the Housing for Heroes program. So, Jeremy, you're a board member and you're currently the chair of the board. You've seen this evolve from idea to now reality. What does your role specifically look like in making projects like Veterans Village and Housing for Heroes possible?
Yeah. Well, Scott, thanks for having us on this podcast. It's such a great opportunity to be able to spread the word on the great work that MACV is doing, especially with the Veteran Village. But as far as my role, it's pretty simple. It's collaborative. I think all of us on the foundation board collectively see the deep need for ending homelessness for veterans. And we've all been supportive of the initiative, and we have all been willing to roll up our sleeves wherever it's needed to get to where we are with this great project.
And speaking on behalf for you and all of the leadership for not only from a national perspective for HomeAid, but at each affiliate like with yours, leadership like you and your colleagues, we couldn't do the work without it. So thank you for not only being a longtime board member, but choosing to be in that position as chair, because it's Sophia and her team and others in our affiliates. We can't do work without people like you. So thank you for stepping up and being engaged.
It's a pleasure.
So Jon, from MACV's perspective, you're on the front lines. You're serving veterans every day. So when you look at projects like the Veterans Village and then the individual Housing for Heroes programs, how do those projects fit into your overall continuum of care for the veterans that you serve?
Well, number one, thank you for mentioning continuum of care. It's great to be in a conversation with individuals who actually know what the continuum of care is and not have to spend the time explaining that. Within Minnesota, there are 10 continuums of care. And since this relationship started, and I'm going to get to the how these homes fit into it, but this is important information. Since 2017, Minnesota has been able to declare a functional end to veteran homelessness in 9 of our 10 continuums of care.
That's amazing.
One of those, which I think is the most significant, is Hennepin County. It is the largest continuum of care that exists here in the state. But of the 2 continuums of care in the Twin Cities, you've got Ramsey, which is St. Paul, Hennepin County, which is Minneapolis. Hennepin County was able to declare a functional end to homelessness, and it can be directly attributed to the 15 homes and accessory dwelling units that were built through this partnership. Just finishing the 15th home right now. At one point in time, we were concentrating these homes in North Minneapolis. And for those who aren't familiar with the geography here, North Minneapolis is an area that had seen a lot of homes go into foreclosure, or there's a lot of vacant lots in North Minneapolis. And through this partnership, we created the housing for veterans, but we also are building new homes in neighborhoods, which are bringing up the values and seeing other, positive impacts to those neighborhoods where these homes are. One of the things about the homes that we build with this partnership, though, that is so critical is the fact that we do it without any federal, state, government, any funding whatsoever. We're doing this through philanthropy and fundraising and the generosity of our builders. And because of that, we can use the homes in any fashion that the demand requires. If we have a spike on women veterans on the homeless registry, we can make a home be dedicated just for homeless women veterans. If we have a need for group living, we can turn a home from a family home when that family moves on to a group scenario of housing. But we can do that because we're not beholden to any government or state, city, any of these other guidelines. We're able to just determine what is the need with these homes and use them for that capacity. Now, we have other types of housing in our portfolio, and it's great to have them for those options, but then we're following those rules very specifically with those units that were funded with other government assistance. So to have the spectrum of housing is really the key of, another tool in the toolbox to be able to help veterans.
And I think that's very, very important in communities across the country, that you look at what does that continuum look like and where are there gaps. And clearly, with the housing that's been built in veteran homelessness there in the cities, you've begun to fill those gaps and to get to that functional zero. I really appreciate it also, and both Jeremy and Sophia will probably double down on this, but I've been in those communities and I'm familiar with the transition that's happened and the fact that you were able to pick up vacant lots and build new housing in that community. It's part of a revitalization. It's part of reinvesting in the built environment. So it's been beautiful to see. I've read on your website, the MACV website, your housing services, it's more than just shelter. It's about stability and recovery and empowerment. And how do the buildings that have been built do that? How are you seeing them being more than just a shelter?
Well, I'll go ahead and steal a title from Sophia and say housing first. You really can't start to focus on the other issues that you're working through that led you into homelessness if you still don't know where you're going to sleep tonight. So that housing first is not just it's not just a title. It's not just a slogan. It really is how you begin to address any other issues, is to provide housing first. And the impact, and we've had veterans who have spoken at our events, and they're talking about the impact that they're seeing on their kids and how their lives are changing. And it's like you realize that it's not just this one veteran that you can help with this house. It's many veterans you can help with this house. It's then the extended family that sees this turnaround for that individual and how their family is positively affected by that. And maybe they're able to, we've been able to reconnect family members with this type of housing. There is a very low number, very low inventory of shelter for families.
Yeah.
Just they're split up, commonly. And with these homes, we're able to reunite families and then put them back on a path and connect them to all the other resources that we have at MACV. I mean, that's another critical piece, which is when we know where they live, it's a lot easier to interact with them and provide the services than it is to be going to the shelter and trying to find out if they're still there. Are they back today?
Or a motel, or with family, or extended throughout, maybe even in a car. So
the transient status, is eliminated, even if they're considered in a transitional status within the home versus permanent supportive. They're still housed in a place where we can regularly be able to provide services.
Absolutely. So these projects, the physical buildings, represent what can happen when the HomeAid model happens, when builders, nonprofits, and service provider organizations come together. Sophia, can you talk about the partnership that made this possible with longtime support from, a national partner like Lennar or the Lennar Foundation?
Absolutely. So obviously, we operate under a very effective tri-party model to complete all of our Housing for Heroes initiatives. And so first, MACV obviously is the first partner in that model. And they're really the reason behind the mission and helping us tell the story. And then Lennar has the huge job of executing and making sure construction takes place. It is quality craftsmanship. They're building dignified housing anybody would want to live in and managing the entire construction side of things. Lennar Foundation has done a very generous job funding many of our homes, and we're incredibly appreciative of that. And then our trade partners. I mean, another big piece of that puzzle are the different construction trades that work alongside Lennar to come in and donate time, resources, materials to help build these homes at an incredible value. Just some fun statistics within this partnership. Since we've been going since 2017, so we have 15 single family homes. And then in another couple months, we'll wrap up our 22 unit townhome style Veteran Village, which is our community that that's currently in progress. When all is said and done, so by the end of 2025, this partnership will have created 101 beds for our veterans here in Minnesota experiencing homelessness, which is amazing and incredibly impactful. And I know, as Jon stated before, I mean, we're able to not only help our current veterans, but it's really generational. And not only that, we've been able to save Lennar about $11 million in construction value. So then they can turn their resources into actually taking care of the people that need to be taken care of. And so as a home building industry, we can come in, step in, provide that for a wonderful organization like MACV and really do this in a great partnership.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I'm glad you brought those numbers in, Sophia, because Jon had mentioned that these projects have been done without public money. And a lot of times there's a need for public money. But the fact that $11 million has been contributed from the building industry, whether or not it's foundation money or trades and suppliers, that is a significant investment, not only in the community, but in MACV, because they can then devote resources in other ways. Jeremy, from your vantage point, you're a builder. And what is it about the building industry's culture that in companies that get involved with the foundation, how does that drive the commitment to projects like this for veterans, that culture of the building industry?
Well, yeah. First of all, the building industry is made up of so many great people, and it's fun to think about how we're all mostly competitors in the real world. And when it comes to projects like the Veteran Village, we put all of that aside. We do whatever we need to do to make the greatest impact as possible to help the homelessness situation for veterans. So it's pretty unique in that sense.
And I've said this, and Sophia would probably say this again. We get the privilege of working with not only the best in the service provider world, groups like MACV, but we get to work with the best in the building industry because not everyone steps up to work with us on projects. But when they do, they're great companies, they're great people, they're just really, really good. So Jon, how has this made a difference for MACV when the private industry steps in, not just with donations, but construction and expertise and providing a real collaboration with your organization?
It's critical because, I'm the chief operating officer for MACV, and that's a great title. It sounds pretty important. I can tell you, some of the things I do, but I can tell you what I don't do. I don't know how to develop land, and I don't know how to build. And the things that we could dream up in our head would not be possible without the people with the expertise. I've referred to the homes that have been built through this partnership as turnkey homes. I'm involved on the front end with the land, acquisition component of it. And more recently, I've been involved with that, and I've learned a lot about that. But I'm still not the person who's going to say, yeah, we can fit 22 units on this piece of land. We need those experts. We need those surveyors, and we need the individuals who can look at the blueprints. When I say something like, well, could we make this 0 step, or could we make this ADA? And there's like, I'll go right back to the drawing board and I'll redraw it. Yep. I'll give you an example of that. I was walking through this third home they were building, and they were still building homes the way they build homes, which meant there was a master bedroom. Well, if you have group scenario, everybody wants that room, right? And I asked the question, could it be possible to just make all the bedrooms on this floor the same size with no big walk-in closet for anybody? And that's not what they built.
Yeah.
But they just went right back to their blueprints and said, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. And then they just started asking, well, what do you think about this? Or they saw us put 2 fridges in a kitchen that was designed for one, and then they just redesigned the kitchen for the next house to have 2 fridges.
Yep.
And that's them. That's them doing the thing that they do. And I commonly will say, if you let people do the thing that they do, everybody will be successful, as opposed to trying to get into somebody else's lane and do the thing that they do. So for them to be a part of this relationship. And I think one thing, you asked Jeremy about, why do they do this? So many times I'm on the construction site and I meet people in their hard hats, got a military sticker on it or something like that. They served. A lot of them did. And even if they didn't, they want to help veterans. And the most amazing piece of this has been their appetite to be involved in another project. They'll be there working and saying, what's next? And I'm thinking, okay, what's next?
And that's really a beautiful thing because you're allowing people that do what they do best to do it at a higher or a different purpose. And a lot of times these projects, I mean, it's more than just a house to them. They're devoting their skills and time and expertise. So Jeremy, over the years, on that note, there's been a number of these Housing for Heroes homes that have been built over the Twin Cities, and most recently the one in College Avenue in St. Paul that's been built. And how do these projects, how are they so special for you and the builders involved? Kind of teeing off of what Jon was talking about.
Yeah, just knowing that we're changing families' lives for generations is what makes it so special. No matter how big or small the project might be, I mean, you have a wide variety between, just a single residential home, which we've started with, and now the Vet Village, which is a little bit bigger. It doesn't matter. You're making a huge impact to change lives, to help end homelessness. And thinking back to my first involvement with Housing First and MACV was probably 6 or 7 years ago. Our company was approached to donate a roof for one of the homes, and at afar it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but especially when there's so many different facets to building a home, it's just one piece of it. But just knowing that you provided a roof over the home was huge, and it actually made a huge impact on our company as well, knowing that we made a difference in an area. So we were fortunate enough to be able to help donate 2 roofs for a couple different MACV homes. So it's been really cool to see and be a part of.
And on the one hand, it's what you do and it seems so natural, but it has such a benefit for others for years to come. So Jon, I want to thank you. You've served 25 years in the Army. My father also served in the Army in a different generation. And you now lead MACV's mission on the ground. How does that dual perspective of being a veteran, a soldier, and now a strategist in operations shape the way you're approaching the issues related to veteran homelessness?
Well, it always comes back to the mission, right? And that's when you're in uniform, there's always a mission, and it has to be completed. And our mission is to end veteran homelessness in Minnesota, and we do that, one veteran at a time. We hope that our mission can help the state reach a functional end of veteran homelessness. But strategically, that doesn't mean that the mission is over, because individuals will always find themselves in a situation that could make them homeless in the future. So what we tell people is that we've created a system. We've built a support system that anytime a veteran does become homeless, that stint in homelessness is short, that it's non-reoccurring. That's the functional end of veteran homelessness, is that we have solutions built. That's what we have been building with this partnership to support our mission of ending veteran homelessness. And any day, when somebody asks me, can we do this, or should we do that, or can we accept this? And the question is always, does it help us end veteran homelessness? And if it does, then the answer is always yes. If it doesn't, the answer might still be yes, but we're still just trying to figure out exactly where that fits in our puzzle. And I think you always have to be looking at this battlefield of trying to end veteran homelessness and understand who are the units on your left and your right, and how are you working together with them. You can't just be laser focused on what's directly in front of you. Strategically, you have to be thinking about the relationships of those other units that are in the same mission with you. And that, I think, has been the key to the success, not just of this partnership, but the key to the success of what's happening in Minnesota, and the work that Housing First, Lennar Foundation, and all these build partners is nationally recognized. We went out to the National Coalition of Homeless Veteran conference this year and provided a presentation on how to take this relationship and export it anywhere else in the nation. And we're an open playbook as far as that's concerned. The opportunity to be on this podcast is another way to share that playbook with individuals and organizations.
So Jon, what are the challenges that veterans face? The biggest challenges that they're facing in securing housing, whether or not it's in Minnesota where you're at or otherwise. What do you see? What are their challenges?
Well, I think it's a similar challenge for anybody who is in a low income bracket. And that's the lack of affordable housing that's out there. And this challenge just ties right back to the building industry, which is how are they able to build affordable housing when there's so many federal regulations or state regulations that keep making the product that they want to provide at a reasonable cost almost impossible to do. The reason this works is we have three different, entities that are fundraising to make it happen. And if you were trying to do this by yourself, the math would never work out.
So as you see this nationally, are there policies or other structural factors that need to change to allow veterans to access housing?
As it relates to veterans accessing housing, I think it's just really a component of is affordable housing available, and are people able to provide it on the policy side of it? I mean, I wouldn't try to answer the question as far as, how can housing be made to be more affordable? I think one of the things about this relationship, and Jeremy touched on, the individuals who work on these homes, their sense of pride that from what they say to me is the fact that the thing that they just built wasn't built with the idea of putting money in somebody's pocket. It was built with the idea of helping somebody, and they used the skill that they have. They used the materials that they have to do that, and that makes them feel good and want to do it again. And that's not a policy that we can change. We just need to create more partnerships where people can experience that.
Yeah. So as you've shared this story nationally, veteran homelessness quote numbers have gone down since 2010, but we're at a cusp of, are they going to pop back up for different circumstances? And you've mentioned functional zero a number of times, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's, again, another term like continuum of care that people don't understand. But you've achieved functional zero. Do you see you being able to maintain it? And what needs to be done in other communities to achieve that concept and that reality of functional zero like you have in Minnesota?
The functional end, to veteran homelessness would not have been possible if not for an increase in low or zero barrier housing. And that is a product of MACV being a landlord and saying, regardless of your background, we're going to provide you housing and help you build up your ability to rent from another landlord somewhere else. I think that across the nation you are going to see a spike. There is a lot going on in our world today that is making it harder and harder for people to afford things. And that will create a spike. But here in the state of Minnesota, the idea has always been, we won't achieve this functional end unless we can outpace the people who are going into homelessness by housing more people. And that's what we're doing in Minnesota today. And we'll continue to do that because of this relationship and identifying other areas where this housing is needed.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a really good place in Minnesota, and it will take relationships like this at other places in the country to see that the housing of veterans outpacing veterans becoming homeless.
So Jeremy, on that end, as someone who is at that intersection, you're in the building industry, you're in housing and then philanthropy. How do you see your local work connecting to a national movement to end veteran homelessness? Do you see a role that you can play?
Well, just hopefully just continuing to spread the word and, continue to throw yourself out there and be part of as much as possible. And my hope is that projects like the Veteran Village will continue to gain a ton of local coverage and hopefully more national coverage that will spur on other parts of the country to do the same. This really could make a huge impact, not only locally, but nationally. And that's the hope. That's, I think, everyone's end game here.
Yeah. And then Sophia, likewise, you manage a lot of this and recruit people. How do you think builders and developers around the country can play a role and in turn replicate what you're doing in Minnesota as a model for others to replicate?
Yeah. I think just reaching out and asking the question is the first step. So reaching out to the local home building industry and seeing if this is something that they'd be interested. And then whenever I meet with people, I always reinforce the concept that They might think they have nothing to offer a nonprofit, but when it comes to building houses and building housing for those who need it, who are experiencing homelessness, our builders bring far more to the nonprofit world than they realize. So whether it's developing land, lending their expertise to take the burden of construction off the nonprofit so they can focus back end on their clients, just giving that space for the nonprofit to kind of hand over that construction piece of things is invaluable. So I think, and Jon can speak to it too, I mean, there's been a bit of outreach efforts done so far about replicating this, and we have no pride of ownership in the concept, but it's really just getting together a passionate group of builders and a nonprofit that wants to be on board.
And behind each of these houses, is our powerful individual stories. Because we've got a structure, we've got a building, but it's people. Jon, could you share a story that stands out to you, a veteran whose life has been changed because of the homes or the services of MACV?
There's a story of a veteran during the pandemic, and she was in a hotel. So we found her and her 3 kids, 2 of which were school age. She was homeless in a shelter. We got her into a hotel, and you can imagine trying to have your kids learn online in a hotel room. There's no separate rooms minus the bathroom for anybody to have any privacy. And we were able to, because one of our houses came online, we were able to quickly move her into a 4-bedroom home in St. Paul. And she got her kids into school in the local area, and she immediately found a job, because she had this stability where she was able to focus on all the things that she would normally, once you have the roof over your head, you can be looking further out on all these things. And, that story, I think it's one of the many stories, but what maybe you didn't ask, but I'll tell you is that the ability of our organizations to tell these stories in so many different ways on so many different platforms is what keeps bringing people back. Because there was a time when our organization, even some of the individuals within the organization, thought that we shouldn't ask these veterans to tell their story, it was taboo to just even ask. And we really just had to come back and go, okay, well, we're not going to require them to say anything. We're not going to, but can we, would you like to tell your story? And you'd be amazed at how many people would love to tell their story because they want other people to know about the resources that are available. And the many different venues that Housing First and MACV have been able to share these stories nationally. If people can tap into that resource, they're going to get more and more support. We have a relationship with the local CBS station here, and they do an entire campaign with us that we're not paying for. We're not paying for it because the stories are compelling. They want to tell these stories, and because they tell these stories, we get more name recognition. People start realizing that resources are available that they didn't really think were available. People won't ask for help if they don't think there's a resource for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to share those stories with respect and with dignity. And not only because sometimes those stories are very raw and real and their life is continuing in many, many aspects, but to catch a glimpse of what has been changed and in many aspects redeemed in their lives.
One of those stories, when it gets told, it has a snowball effect as well, because then people actually are reaching out, and that family that we found a house for was then a company adopted them and did Christmas gifts for them. And it just, the amount of good things, tangible good things that kept happening to them by just telling their story, that's part of the story of how we were able to help them.
Sophia and or Jeremy, both of you, is there something that you've seen either with, Lennar, a trade partner, a supplier, a story that they've shared that has stayed with you about the building process that reminds you why this work is important?
What sticks out is I had one of our low voltage partners for our Veteran Village project approach me at our groundbreaking ceremony back earlier this year. And during our time where we did our groundbreaking ceremony, had a nice little event. He had met a female veteran that was experiencing homelessness. And I think she had just started working with MACV, had heard about Veteran Village and this initiative, and had taken the bus down to the site to come to the groundbreaking. And they both approached me with basically tears in their eyes, just because, you know, a moment for him where he actually met somebody, heard their story, knew the why of why he was going to help build Veteran Village and build one of these Housing for Heroes homes, and her knowing that there's people out there that are helping. So it's MACV, it's these people that are there actually building her home, and I think for both of them it was just one of those moments where it was a very cool opportunity to really see this project in action and who we're helping and why we're helping.
That's beautiful. Jeremy, anything from your end?
I don't have as many specifics as Sophia does, but just seeing the eagerness and excitement from all aspects of the industry has been very moving the last few years. So many different people and organizations have stepped up to help out, and it's just really fun to see.
You know, it's all of this. It's not just housing. You know, it's not just the home. It's community. It's creating a sense of belonging. You know, everything that the building industry does, you know, every wall, every partnership, you know, builds this hope.
I think another thing that's really important about the housing that is being built with this partnership and then the story that goes along with it is these are really nice homes. Honestly, sometimes when you say things like affordable housing, people get a bad taste in their mouth, or they think low quality, low income. These aren't those homes. And we've had instances where one family, you know, is walking through the home they're about to move into, and they saw a dishwasher and drop to their knees. They see a washer and dryer. They're not going to the laundromat anymore, right? Like, generally affordable housing means that. And when these individuals, it's not just dignified housing. This is really nice housing that then is uplifting for those individuals to feel like they deserve it, or they're worthy of it, and to see how that impacts them. A kitchen island was, you know, a story for a veteran when his kids saw the kitchen island, and he says, "Don't tell mom about this," because they were divorced, and he didn't want the kids going back to tell his ex-wife that dad has an island in the kitchen. Like, what? How was that possible? Right? Like, that's some of the ways. It's not just the roof. It is laundry in your own home, a dishwasher in an island in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And those things are things we take for granted. And then you see their impact when the individuals get to move into these homes.
Well, it underscores the what I feel is a fact, that the built environment is part of the healing process, and things we don't see, that interaction between that family members is beautiful. So, Sophia, what is down the road? What do we see on the horizon?
For sure. I mean, at this point, we're just looking forward to celebrating the completion of Veteran Village. It has taken multiple years to get here, and to know that we are a few months away from being able to celebrate this is really what we're focusing on right now. So on behalf of the foundation, I know at this moment, we are super proud of the work that we've done in the space of veteran homelessness. And as a responsive organization, we're starting to explore what our next chapters are next with MACV, or we actually are going to be partnering with Avivo again on a project that is in central Minnesota, so moving outside the Twin Cities metro. And then we always default to MACV. They have their pulse on what our veteran needs are. I know they have some wonderful plans in place on things that they'll be doing to keep up with the needs of our veterans here in Minnesota. So we're just grateful for this partnership and looking forward to celebrating in December.
That's great. And Jeremy, what advice would you give to other builders or builder organizations, associations, or even other HomeAid affiliates that want to take on a veterans housing project in their community?
I would just say take a chance, even if it feels too big or impossible. Things tend to work out for the greater good of people. So just go for it.
And Jon, from the perspective of MACV, what can our listeners, the builders, donors, community members do to make a difference for veterans homelessness in their city?
To do what it is that you do, and find that organization that you want to partner with. I'm lucky that I'm a veteran, and you know, my mission is veterans. But this partnership can be replicated anywhere in the nation, and it can be replicated for any population in the nation. You mentioned your personal connection to Avivo, and I think that anybody who has a passion to help a population of individuals, is just finding where you fit in the puzzle. And then, like Jeremy says, just take a chance, try it out. It feels extremely daunting and at first until you do it. And then you realize, okay, not only can we do this, we could do this again and again.
Yeah. And if we can do this for veterans, we can do it for other populations, emancipated foster youth, victims of domestic violence, the chronic homeless. It shows that we can achieve this with success. So Sophia, Jeremy, and Jon, thank you for the time. I've really enjoyed our conversation today and how the work you're doing honors and houses our nation's heroes. As we mark Veterans Day, I'm reminded that patriotism isn't just about words. It's about how we show up for those that have served. The Veterans Village and Housing for Heroes programs are shining examples of what is possible when compassion, craftsmanship, and community come together. To our listeners, I encourage you to get connected through the links in our show notes to learn more and how you can be involved, whether or not it's with Housing First Minnesota Foundation, MACV, or other organizations that are like that. This has been Unsheltered Conversations. I'm Scott Larson. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for building housing, dignity, and hope for America's veterans.